They matched on the internet. Then the messages started coming from inside her house. You ever swipe right on someone and feel that little rush? That moment when you match with someone who seems perfect? Same interests, same sense of humor, messages flowing so naturally it's like you've known each other forever? Yeah, Sarah Chin felt that too. She was 28, living alone in a duplex in Portland, Oregon, working from home as a graphic designer. And like millions of people, she was on dating apps because, look, that's just how we meet people now, right? Nothing weird about it. Nothing dangerous. Until the messages started coming from inside her house. My name is Nick and I spend way too much time thinking about this. They matched on the internet, and then the messages started coming from inside her house. If this story helps you tonight, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to change the way you think about the people you let into your digital life. Here's the thing about modern dating. We've all become so comfortable sharing pieces of ourselves with strangers. A few photos, some witty bio, your favorite coffee shop, the park where you run every morning. Harmless details, right? That's what Sarah thought. It was February 2019. Rainy season in Portland, which, let's be honest, is basically every season in Portland. Sarah had been on Hinge for about 6 months. A few dates here and there, nothing serious. She wasn't desperate, wasn't obsessed with finding someone. She was just open to it. Then she matched with David Morrison. 32 years old, software engineer, loved hiking and indie music. His profile showed him at Powell's Books at a Trailblazers game on what looked like the Columbia River Gorge. Normal stuff. He had kind eyes. That's what Sarah told her best friend Monica later. He had kind eyes. Their first conversation was about a band they both loved, The National. Then it shifted to books, Haruki Murakami. Then to this little ramen place in the Hawthorne district they'd both been to. The messages came easy, natural. It felt like talking to someone I already knew, Sarah told police later. Like we were already friends. Now you might be thinking, Nick, this sounds like every dating app conversation ever. And you'd be right. That's exactly the point. That's exactly what made it so perfect. They texted for 2 weeks before David suggested meeting up. Coffee first, Sarah's rule. Always coffee first, always somewhere public. She suggested a place called Barista on Hawthorne. 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Safe. Smart. David showed up exactly on time. And here's what's important. He looked exactly like his photos. Same smile. Same kind eyes. Same easy way of talking. He was charming without trying too hard. Funny without being obnoxious. He asked questions about her life and actually listened to the answers. The coffee date turned into a walk through Laurelhurst Park. 3 hours evaporated. Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. That electricity. That possibility. I kept waiting for the red flag, she said later. But it never came. He was just nice. They saw each other twice more that week. Dinner at a Thai place. Drinks at a wine bar. Each time David was respectful. He didn't push. Didn't try to come inside when he walked her home. Just a kiss goodnight at her door, and then he'd wait until she was inside before driving away. Gentlemanly, Sarah thought. Calculated, the police would say later. Here's what most people don't realize about predators. They're not the creepy guys with no social skills. Not anymore. The successful ones, the dangerous ones, they've evolved. They know how to blend in. How to be exactly what you're looking for. By the end of February, Sarah and David were in that early relationship phase where you're texting constantly. Good morning messages. Photos of their lunch. Memes that reminded them of each other. Sarah would be working at her home office, and her phone would light up with a message from David and she'd smile. Her duplex was small but comfortable. The kind of place where you could hear your neighbor's TV through the wall if they had it up too loud. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room with big windows that looked out onto a quiet residential street. She'd lived there for 2 years. Felt safe there. David had never been inside. That was Sarah's boundary. She wasn't inviting anyone into her space until she really knew them. Smart, right? But they'd had plenty of video calls. David would call her from his apartment, which looked neat and normal. Bookshelves, a nice couch, a plant in the corner that was somehow still alive. See, he joked on one call. I'm a real person. I can keep a plant alive and everything. They laughed about it. But it's here that things started getting off. Small things at first. Things Sarah almost didn't notice. One evening in early March, she was texting with David while cooking dinner. She mentioned she was making pasta aglio e olio, garlic and olive oil, simple but good. David responded immediately, with red pepper flakes, I hope? Of course, she texted back. The recipe isn't complete without them. I know, he replied. You always add extra. I love that about you. Sarah stopped stirring the pasta. She'd never told him that. Had she? She scrolled back through their messages. Nothing. They'd talked about food plenty of times, but she'd never mentioned her thing about adding extra red pepper flakes to everything. She shrugged it off. Maybe she had mentioned it and forgot. Or maybe Monica had told him at some point. They'd all grabbed drinks together once. But then there was the thing with the coffee mug. Sarah had this mug she loved. Stupid, really? It was from a bookstore in Seattle she'd visited years ago. Teal-colored with a quote from Virginia Woolf on it. She used it every morning. Had never posted a photo of it online, never mentioned it to David. But one day he texted her, How's the Virginia Woolf mug this morning? Still your favorite. Her blood went cold for just a second. Then she rationalized. Maybe she'd been holding it during one of their video calls and he'd noticed. That had to be it. You're observant, she texted back. I pay attention to the things that matter, he replied. Sweet, right? Romantic even? Or surveillance? Look, here's what you need to understand. Sarah was smart. She worked in tech-adjacent fields. She knew about online privacy. She had her social media locked down pretty tight, or so she thought. But we all have blind spots. We all share more than we realize. The messages continued. David was the perfect boyfriend. Attentive without being clingy. He remembered little things she mentioned. He sent her articles about designers she liked. He seemed genuinely interested in her life. Too interested, maybe. One night in mid-March, Sarah was watching a documentary on Netflix. Some true crime thing about a cult in Oregon. Ironic, given what was coming. Her phone buzzed. David, the Rajneeshis? Classic Oregon story. She stared at her phone. She hadn't told him what she was watching. She looked around her living room instinctively, like maybe he was somehow there. But no. She was alone. Door locked. Windows closed. She typed back, How did you know what I was watching? The three dots appeared immediately, like he'd been waiting for her to ask. David, you mentioned you were going to watch it earlier, remember? When we were texting this afternoon? Sarah scrolled back. She had mentioned wanting to watch a documentary. But she hadn't said which one. David, plus you always watch Netflix on Wednesday nights. It's your wind-down thing. He was right. It was. But, did I tell you that? She texted. Yeah, babe. A couple weeks ago. You said you're a creature of habit. Had she? Sarah felt like she was losing her grip on what she'd shared and what she'd kept private. That's the thing about gaslighting. It makes you doubt your own memory. Your own reality. She let it go. Again. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Sarah's neighbor in the other half of the duplex was a guy named Tom Reeves. Mid-50s, divorced, worked night shifts as a hospital security guard. They weren't close. They'd exchange pleasantries when they ran into each other, maybe help each other with packages. That was it. Tom was quiet. Kept to himself. A little awkward in that way lonely middle-aged men sometimes are, but harmless. Sarah had lived next to him for 2 years without incident. Until one Saturday morning in late March when she ran into him outside while she was getting her mail. Hey Sarah, Tom said. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Can I Can I ask you something weird? Sure. Sarah replied, already half turned toward her door. That guy you've been seeing. David, right? Sarah froze. How do you know his name? Tom looked even more uncomfortable now. Look, I don't want to overstep, but I've noticed him around a lot. More than you probably realize. What do you mean? Tom glanced around like he was checking if anyone was listening. I work nights, right? So I come home around 7 a.m. usually, and I've seen his car parked down the street. Multiple times. Just sitting there. Before you're even awake. Sarah felt her stomach drop. That doesn't make sense. David lives across town. Why would he? I don't know, Tom interrupted. But I've seen it at least 4 or 5 times. And look, maybe it's nothing. Maybe he just parks there to make work calls or something before coming to see you. But it felt off to me. Wanted to give you a heads up. Woman living alone and all. Sarah thanked him, but inside she was reeling. She went back into her apartment and immediately texted David. Hey, random question. Have you ever parked on my street and just sat in your car? The response took longer than usual. Almost 5 minutes. David, that's a weird question, L. Why? Sarah, my neighbor said he's seen a car that looks like yours parked here early in the morning sometimes. David, your neighbor sounds paranoid. I've never done that. What kind of car does he think it is? Sarah realized she hadn't asked Tom that. She felt stupid. Sarah, never mind. Probably just someone else with a similar car. David, yeah, probably. Your neighbor sounds like he's got too much time on his hands. Maybe he's the one you should be worried about. The message made Sarah laugh nervously. David was right. Tom was a little odd. This was probably nothing. But that night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all the little things. The comments about her habits. The knowledge of what she was watching, eating, drinking. The parking situation. At 2:17 a.m., she got out of bed and checked all her windows. Locked. She checked the doors. Locked. She even looked in her closets, feeling ridiculous but unable to stop herself. Everything was fine. She climbed back into bed and grabbed her phone. Maybe scrolling through Instagram would help her relax. That's when she saw the notification. David had liked one of her photos. Not recent, it was from 8 months ago. A photo from before they'd even matched. Sarah at her favorite coffee shop, holding that teal Virginia Woolf mug. Her hands started shaking. She scrolled through more of her old photos. Another like from David on a photo from 10 months ago. And another from a year ago. He'd been going through her entire Instagram history. Deep diving. Learning everything about her. Now you might be thinking, Nick, people do that all the time. You match with someone, you look through their photos. That's normal. And you'd be right. It is normal. But here's the thing. Sarah's Instagram was private. You had to request to follow her. She'd accepted David's follow request after their second date. That was 3 weeks ago. Which meant for 3 weeks, David had been systematically going through years of her life. Studying her. Learning her patterns, her preferences, her favorite places. Building a profile. Sarah didn't sleep that night. The next day was Sunday. Sarah told David she wasn't feeling well and needed to skip their planned brunch. She needed time to think. Space to figure out if she was being paranoid or if her instincts were screaming at her for a reason. David was understanding. Sent her a sweet message about taking care of herself, hoping she felt better soon. Totally normal. Sarah spent the day going through everything. Every text message, every conversation, trying to piece together what she'd actually told him versus what he somehow just knew. The list of unexplained knowledge grew. He knew she went to the gym on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. She'd never told him that. He knew her favorite Thai restaurant was the one on Division Street. She'd suggested a different one when they'd gone out. He knew she always kept her bedroom window cracked at night because she liked fresh air. How the hell did he know that? That night, Sarah called Monica. I think something's wrong with David, she said. She explained everything. The messages, the knowledge, Tom's observation about the car. The Instagram deep dive. Monica was quiet for a long moment. Then, Sarah, I think you need to end this. Like today. This isn't normal. But what if I'm overreacting? What if there's a reasonable explanation for all of it? Then he can explain it to someone else. After you're safe. Sarah knew Monica was right. But there was a part of her, the part that had been so happy these past weeks, that didn't want to believe it. David had been so perfect. So exactly what she'd been looking for. That was the problem, wasn't it? He'd been too perfect. Because he'd been studying her. She decided to test something. At 9 p.m. that night, she posted on her Instagram story, thinking about dyeing my hair red. Should I do it? Within 30 seconds, David texted her, I love your hair the way it is. But red would look amazing on you too. Sarah stared at her phone. David didn't follow her on Instagram. She'd never accepted his request after she noticed the old likes. She'd kept him in pending, watching to see if he'd say anything. He couldn't have seen that story. Unless he was looking at her Instagram from another account. Or unless he could see her screen. Sarah slowly lifted her eyes from her phone and looked around her living room. At the windows. At the vents. At the smoke detector on the ceiling. Her laptop was open on the coffee table. The camera light wasn't on, but she grabbed a sticky note and covered the camera. Then she did the same to her phone's front camera. Then she texted David, thanks babe. I think I'll keep it blonde for now though. David, good choice. You're perfect as you are. Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. She opened her laptop and ran every security scan she could think of. Nothing. But she wasn't a tech expert. If someone had installed spyware or remote access software, would she even know how to find it? She called Monica back. I need to get out of here. Can I come stay with you? Already making up the guest bed, Monica said. Pack a bag and come now. Sarah was throwing clothes into a duffel bag when her phone buzzed. David, hey, you feeling okay? You seem stressed. How the fuck did he know that? Sarah turned off her phone completely. Removed the battery, old habit from a previous generation of phones, but her anxiety-driven Amazon purchase of an older model phone suddenly seemed prescient. She grabbed her laptop, her charger, her toiletries, and walked out her front door. Tom was standing on his porch. You okay? He asked, seeing the duffel bag. Just staying at a friend's for a few days, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. Tom nodded slowly. That's probably smart. Hey, I don't want to freak you out more, but I saw that car again this morning. Around 6 a.m. Same spot. What kind of car is it? Sarah asked. Silver Honda Civic. Looked like a 2015 or so. David drove a silver Honda Civic. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. Did you see the driver? No. Windows were tinted. But it drove away around 6:30. Right about when you usually leave for the gym. Sarah had gone to the gym at 6:30 that morning. She had a routine. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 a.m., back by 8. David knew that somehow, and apparently he'd been watching to confirm it. Tom, Sarah said carefully, if you see that car again, will you call the police? Tom's face got serious. You got it. You be safe. At Monica's apartment, Sarah finally let herself fall apart. She'd been holding it together, rationalizing, making excuses. But sitting on Monica's couch with a glass of wine she couldn't even drink because her hands were shaking too hard, reality crashed into her. Someone had been watching her, learning her, tracking her patterns, and she'd invited him into her life. Monica, who worked in IT security, took Sarah's laptop and phone and started running serious diagnostics. What she found made both of them go pale. Someone had installed remote access software on Sarah's laptop 3 weeks ago. The same day Sarah and David had their first video call. Sarah, Monica said slowly, did you click on any links he sent you that day? Sarah thought back. He sent me a Spotify playlist. Said he made it for me. I clicked on it. Was it a weird URL? I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I was just excited he made me a playlist. Monica's jaw clenched. It wasn't a playlist. It was a Trojan. He's had complete access to your laptop for weeks. Camera, microphone, screen sharing, files. Everything. Sarah felt vomit rising in her throat. He's been watching me? Yeah. And listening. Every video call they'd had. Every time she'd walked past her laptop in her pajamas. Every work meeting. Every phone call with friends. Every private moment. He'd been there. We need to call the police, Monica said. Right now. But Sarah was thinking about something else. Monica, if he had access to my laptop, he could see my emails, my Amazon orders, my delivery notifications. Yeah, why? I ordered a new lock for my front door last week. It was supposed to be delivered yesterday, but when I checked, it said it was already picked up. The two women stared at each other. I never picked it up, Sarah whispered. Detective Maria Gonzalez from the Portland Police Department took Sarah's statement at 11 p.m. that Sunday night. At first, Sarah could tell the detective was skeptical. These things often turned out to be misunderstandings, exes who wouldn't let go, anxious people who'd watched too much true crime. But when Monica showed her the evidence of the remote access software, Detective Gonzalez's entire demeanor changed. We need to get a warrant for his devices, she said. But that takes time. In the meantime, I don't want you going back to that apartment. And I want you to file for a restraining order first thing Monday morning. What about my stuff? Sarah asked. My work files are there. My whole life is there. We'll do a welfare check, Detective Gonzalez said. Send an officer to your place tonight to make sure everything's secure. But Sarah, I need you to understand something. If this guy has been doing what you think he's been doing, your apartment might not be safe. Sarah nodded numbly. The welfare check came back clean. Doors locked, windows secure, no signs of forced entry. The officer who did it said everything looked fine. Sarah tried to sleep on Monica's couch that night but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she pictured David sitting in his car down the street from her house. Watching. Waiting. Learning when she left, when she came home, when her lights went out at night. Monday morning, Sarah took a sick day from work. She and Monica went to the courthouse to file for a restraining order. The judge granted a temporary one immediately based on the evidence of the spyware. That afternoon, Detective Gonzalez called. Sarah, we executed a search warrant on David Morrison's apartment. You need to sit down for this. Sarah was already sitting. What did you find? David Morrison doesn't exist. The apartment he showed you on video calls? It's an Airbnb. He rented it month to month, probably just for the background. The real tenant hasn't lived there in years. Sarah's vision started to blur. What do you mean he doesn't exist? The name is fake. The ID he would have shown you, fake. We're running the photos through facial recognition now, but Sarah, this is bigger than we thought. We found 3 other laptops in his real apartment. All of them had remote access software. All of them were monitoring different women. Sarah felt like the room was spinning. Where is he now? We don't know. He hasn't been back to his real apartment in 2 days. Since right around the time you stopped responding to his messages. Sarah, we think he knows you're on to him. But if David Morrison isn't his real name, then who? We're working on it. In the meantime, I need you to stay where you are. Don't go back to your apartment. Don't go anywhere alone. We're trying to locate him now. Sarah hung up and looked at Monica. He's watching other women. This isn't just about me. Jesus Christ, Monica breathed. Sarah's phone, her new phone, a burner she'd picked up that morning, started ringing. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Sarah? This is Tom. Your neighbor. Tom, how did you get this number? Your friend Monica gave it to me when she came by to grab some of your clothes this morning. Listen, I need to tell you something and you're not going to like it. Sarah's heart was pounding. What? I've been thinking about that David guy and something occurred to me. You know that week in February when you were out of town? That work conference in Seattle? Sarah had gone to Seattle for 4 days in mid-February, before she'd even matched with David. Yeah. I saw someone in your apartment. Through the window. I thought it was weird, but I figured maybe you had a house sitter or something. Didn't think much of it. Sarah couldn't breathe. What did they look like? I didn't get a great look. But Sarah, I think it might have been him. I think he was in your house before you even knew he existed. The phone slipped from Sarah's hand. Here's what the police pieced together over the next 72 hours. The man calling himself David Morrison was actually Tyler James Brennan, 34, from Beaverton, Oregon. He had a record, breaking and entering, stalking, violation of restraining orders. He'd served 18 months in prison in 2016. And he'd been doing this for years. Tyler would identify women who lived alone, worked from home, and had somewhat predictable patterns. He'd watch them for weeks before making contact. Sometimes he'd break in while they were gone, not to steal but to install cameras. Tiny ones, hidden in smoke detectors, air vents, behind picture frames. In Sarah's case, he'd installed 3 cameras. 1 in her living room, 1 in her bedroom, 1 in her bathroom. He'd been watching her for 2 months before they matched on Hinge. The dating profile wasn't random. Tyler had studied Sarah's Instagram, her LinkedIn, her Facebook. He'd built David Morrison to be her perfect match. Same interests, same taste in music and books, same sense of humor. He'd even joined the same gym she went to, not to work out but to learn her schedule. The Hinge match wasn't fate. It was engineering. Tyler had been in Sarah's apartment at least 6 times. He'd copied her keys during that trip to Seattle. Tom had been right. He'd tested different locks, figured out her security routine, learned the rhythm of her life. He knew when she went to the gym because he'd watched her get dressed. He knew about the red pepper flakes because he'd seen her cook. He knew about the Virginia Woolf mug because he'd filmed her drinking from it every morning. The laptop spyware was just a backup. Just another way to monitor her when the cameras couldn't. And the messages? Those affectionate, sweet, perfectly timed messages? Tyler sent them while sitting in his car, down the street, watching her house. Sometimes he'd message her from inside her apartment while she was out. He'd lie on her bed, smell her pillows, go through her things. Then he'd leave before she got home, lock the door behind him, and text her something sweet. Thinking about you, he'd written once while literally standing in her kitchen. The police found chat logs on his computer. Tyler had been talking to other men online, sharing tips on surveillance, stalking, how to build the perfect fake identity. It was a whole community. They called what they did relationship engineering. It wasn't romance. It was research. It was predation with a smile and kind eyes. They found folders on his computer for 12 different women. Sarah was just the current project. Police arrested Tyler James Brennan on March 28, 2019, at a motel in Gresham. He didn't resist. Smiled at the officers even. Polite to the end. In his car they found another laptop with live feeds. Not from Sarah's apartment. She'd had a security company sweep it after Monica's discovery. The cameras were gone now. These feeds were from someone else's house. A woman named Jessica and Tigard who Tyler had matched with on Bumble 2 weeks earlier. He'd already been inside her apartment 3 times. Police warned Jessica just in time. She filed charges. So did Sarah. So did 3 other women they identified from Tyler's computers. At trial, Tyler's defense attorney tried to argue that his client was mentally ill, that he was obsessed but not dangerous, that he'd never actually hurt anyone. But the prosecutor had evidence. Detailed journals Tyler kept. In them, he described his ultimate plan for each woman. It wasn't just watching. He'd been building towards something. In Sarah's journal, Tyler had written about his timeline. 3 months of building trust. Then he'd suggest she give him a key. For emergencies, he'd tell her. Or maybe they'd go on a trip together and he'd need to water her plants. Once he had legitimate access, he'd accelerate, moving gradually, make himself essential to her life, isolate her from friends, make her dependent. And if she tried to leave? The journal didn't specify, but there were Google searches on his computer for how to make disappearance look voluntary and states without death penalty. Tyler James Brennan was sentenced to 15 years in prison in January 2020. He'll be eligible for parole in 2032. Sarah Chin moved to a different city, changed her phone number, deleted all her social media, started over. She doesn't date anymore, can't bring herself to trust it, can't see a face on a screen without wondering what's really behind it. Look, here's what I need you to understand. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't some rare psychopath who happened to cross Sarah's path. According to the FBI, there are thousands of people doing this right now. Watching, learning, building fake identities to match with people on dating apps. They're using social media to study you. Your posts, your photos, your check-ins at restaurants and coffee shops. Every detail you share is a piece of data they can use. They're installing spyware through fake links, playlists that aren't playlists, PDFs that aren't PDFs. One click and they're inside your device. They're patient. They'll watch you for months before making contact. They'll learn your routine so well they can predict your movements better than you can. And when they finally reach out, when you match with them and they seem perfect, they are perfect for you because they built themselves that way. Now, I'm not saying everyone on dating apps is a predator. Most people are just regular folks looking for connection. But the predators are there, hidden among them. And they're getting better at this every day. So what do? Cover your laptop camera. Every time. Even when you think you're alone. Think twice before clicking links from people you just met online. No matter how sweet the gesture seems. Be careful what you post on social media. Those little details, your favorite coffee shop, your gym schedule, the park where you walk your dog, they're breadcrumbs. And someone might be following them. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. That knot in your stomach? That little voice saying, this isn't right? Listen to it. And if someone knows things about you that you never told them, don't rationalize it. Don't make excuses. Ask directly how they know. And if the answer doesn't satisfy you, walk away. Sarah ignored her instincts for weeks because she wanted the relationship to work. Because David, Tyler, was so perfect. Because she didn't want to be paranoid. Her hesitation almost cost her everything. She's safe now. She survived. But she's not the same person she was before Tyler Brennan entered her life. That carefree woman who swiped right on a kind face? She's gone. And sometimes, late at night, Sarah still wonders, how many cameras did they miss? Is someone still watching? Because here's the thing that keeps me up at night, and it should keep you up too. Tyler was caught because he got sloppy. Because Sarah got lucky. Because Tom happened to notice the car. But how many others are out there who don't get sloppy? Who are better at hiding? Who choose victims more carefully? How many people right now are being watched by someone they think they're falling in love with? How many messages are being sent from inside the house? You ever swipe right on someone and feel that rush? That moment when you match with someone who seems perfect? Yeah. Just remember, if they seem too perfect, too attentive, if they know too much too soon, they might have been watching you longer than you think. Sweet dreams. If you or someone you know is being stalked or feels unsafe, contact the National Stalking Hotline at 1-800-FYICALL or visit stalkinghelpline.org. The signs are real. The danger is real. And you deserve to be safe.